Blockchain technology holds the potential to revolutionize every single aspect of our online lives. But to date, the biggest use case that's gotten adoption and is primed to continue to grow is pretty obvious. It's finance. At the core of finance is simply payments, paying for goods and services. But if you've been around the block at all in crypto, you know that this can feel kind of broken, paying for things in cryptocurrency. And if you take a step back, maybe how we pay for everything online is actually broken, even when it comes to credit cards and bank transfers, which most people are used to. So what can fix this? Well, in today's video, I'm going to talk about a new crypto standard for payments that's just come onto the scene, and it holds a promise to fundamentally change how we pay for things online. And spoiler alert, it uses crypto. And I believe this can be a major part of pushing this technology towards mass adoption and give people a big reason to use crypto in their everyday lives, especially in the age of AI. So trust me, you don't want to miss this. So I'm talking about all this as a blockchain developer myself who works with this technology on a daily basis. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below and subscribe. And if you want to jump on this rapidly growing tech trend that's growing twice as fast as the internet was in the 90s, then I can show you how to increase your income by becoming a blockchain developer over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. All right, so let's get into this. Let's talk about this new payment standard and why it's such a big deal. So what is it? Well, it's X402. All right, so cool. What is that? Well, X402 basically is a universal payment language for blockchain payments. All right, it's a standard like HTTP that lets wallets, apps, financial institutions, and blockchains talk to one another in a predictable way. So what the heck does that even mean? Well, let's talk about the problem first and then how it solves it. So let's say that you want to, pay for something on the web, all right? Most of the time, people have to put in a credit card or, some other payment method and then sign up and either save those billing details and pay for something like an e-commerce whenever you buy it, or pre-subscribe to something, whether you're trying to use a service or maybe even an API in order to be able to access whatever good or service you're using digitally. But what if you could basically pay for things and retrieve them all in one go on demand without saving payment details, without reducing the friction, and just pay on every single transactional basis? Well, that's basically what this does. So let's look at HTTP, which is where the X402 comes from. So, if you're not familiar with HTTP, basically it's the protocol that sends all the information that we use in Web 2.0 over the internet. So if you get in your browser and you go to google.com, that's making an HTTP request that's going to come back with the information, and also something called a status code, all right? If you're not familiar with HTTP status codes, they happen with every single web request. And, if you're not familiar with them, you've probably actually seen them before. If you try to go to a website and it says 404, all right, that's an HTTP status code that says this resource that you're looking for is not found. All right, now just below that is 402. We already have that with payments now, but this is taking it to the next step of X402. So whenever you're making a web request behind the scene, really what you're doing is trying to access a resource and get some information back. And what this allows you to do is actually send payment with that request, and then the thing that's responding with the information determines whether or not that payment was actually received when the request went through with the web request. And this is going to allow you to do it with crypto in that transaction and get back whatever you're looking for. Now, I know all that might sound a little abstract, but let's break it down and see how to connect the dots of why this is such a big deal. So first, let's talk about, one of the pain points, why crypto payments really haven't taken off to the degree that we want them to. Well, every chain uses its own standards. Wallets don't really talk to one another out of the box. Merchants who receive crypto payments don't necessarily want volatility, or they don't have the infrastructure to accept things like stable coins. There's no good on-ramps, off-ramps, cross-border rules are a mess, and the UX just sucks for most people. They basically, want crypto payments, but nobody wants to have to explain gas fees to their grandma, okay? But this is where all this changes, okay? This new standard for X402 was put out by Coinbase, all right, as a standard payment gateway for AI and APIs. But also, it's important to note that this was launched in conjunction with Cloudflare, all right, one of the largest web infrastructure providers out there, to create the X402 Foundation alongside Coinbase to support these transactions and actually get this standardized for the web. So this is not just some little niche crypto use case. This is actually a massive effort to get something like this standardized for the entire web. So let's talk about the use cases and how you can actually do something with this. Well, let's talk about the idea of an API. All right, so if you're not familiar with the API, it just stands for Application Programming Interface. It means a lot of different things in programming, but most of the time what people mean when they say API is basically a website that doesn't have a web browser attached. So like if you wanted to build an application that gets a bunch of stock prices in real time, all right, you might use an API for that. Basically, you're talking to a server somewhere and you're getting back that data so that you can use it in an app, your trading bot, whatever, and you're making that request. Now, for most premium APIs, they're not free. You actually have to pay to use them. And so most of the time, you either have to, put a credit card on their user interface somewhere, all right, and then sign up and then pay per usage, or you just pay for a bunch of tokens and then you use your tokens or a subscription plan, whatever it is, all right? But this takes that out of the equation. If you want to make an API request to any server, as long as they support this protocol, you could just send the payment in to request the resource that you want to. It could be like microtransactions that add up over time. Now, if you're a developer watching this channel, you probably see why this is such a big deal. But how does that actually towards mass adoption? Well, think about the era of AI. So we're entering into an era where we have AI agents that actually are doing things on behalf of humans and want to be able to leverage other resources. So a lot of AIs are using APIs to work with whatever they're doing. And, if you want to create an AI agent, you've got to support a certain protocol and you might have to, as a human, go sign up for that. But with this, you could basically equip an AI with a crypto wallet, and any resource that it wanted to access that supported this type of payment infrastructure could essentially just go get that information and pay for it without having to sign up for it, have a credit card or anything like that. So it's a big deal for the future of AI. Not to mention other potential microtransactions that you might want to complete on the web. Okay, so you probably see ads all the time on the internet, whether you're on a website, they are pre-roll ads on a video or just in your news feed or whatever. So what if you wanted to essentially skip an ad? Okay, well, you're using this thing for free because they're showing ads and they're making money that way. But what if you could essentially just skip an ad and pay like a fraction of a cent? All right, you don't want to turn off all ads, but like this one instance you want to do that, well, you could do it that way. You could also, change all of your ad preferences just by paying to skip ads in this place. And we already see this whenever you're going to use, different, let's say, services online where you go through it and they're like, hey, you have to pay to access this, whether it's a news article or something like that. And you have to sign up for some monthly subscription just to read it. And you're like, I don't want to sign up for another subscription service. I just want to get this thing right here. Well, that's a way where they could actually make money doing that as well. If you want to pay for one time to just see something and not to sign up for an account, you could just send it straight through with the request and it would give you back the information that you wanted. And those are just some low-hanging fruits. And this is just the beginning. I mean, this could really be a payment standard that gets adopted for, anything that you buy online. It could go into e-commerce where instead of having to create some account or like do something, you could even have all your, shipping details even saved in a wallet. And when you buy something, it's a seamless transaction where it just, says, here's where you want to send it to, confirm it, yes. And then the payment goes through and then it goes into the system and you get your products that way. Also, any other digital resource that you want to pay for, whether that's, digital content, movies, music, whatever, outside of the streaming services. I think people are getting pretty sick of having to sign up for every streaming service to get any content that they want. And I think there's a huge opportunity for, a big decentralized way to access content on a pay-per-view basis to get adopted this way. All right, now why should you particularly pay attention to this if you're watching this channel? Now, a lot of people watching this channel are interested in crypto, where it's headed, but a lot of you, at the end of the day, what I teach you on this channel is how to become a blockchain developer. And this is a big deal for developers, because now developers can create new apps and integrate payments, easier than ever. All right. Bots, agents, smart contracts can trigger standardized payments. Cross-chain apps now have a Rails system. Entirely new categories of fintech products are being made possible. So basically, like if you're a developer and you want to be early on something real, not hype, not speculation, payments infrastructure is where this opportunity lives. And so, if that sounds good to you, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because we are going to be putting a tutorial out pretty soon on how to actually integrate this into your application, so you don't want to miss it. And so really the big picture with all of this is everybody wants crypto to go mainstream, but it's not going to happen, through meme coins and speculation. It happens with the infrastructure finally gets good enough that the whole world can actually build on top of it. And X402 is one of the biggest steps in that direction. And so if you want to be a developer, building the future of crypto, then make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video. And if you want to see how to just go for the throat and jump on this tech trend, I can show you how to increase your income by becoming a blockchain developer step-by-step from start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You really don't have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. Until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.